You know what's wild? In 1984, while George Lucas was still gluing model spaceships to fishing wire, one movie said, "Screw it," and bet everything on computers that barely existed. The Last Starfighter didn't just gamble on CGI. It threw out every miniature, every practical effect, and rendered 27 minutes of pure digital madness on a supercomputer that nearly caught fire trying to process it all. This wasn't innovation. It was insanity.
It's a game, Centauri.
A game? You may have thought it was a game, but it was also a test. Aha! Sent out across the universe to find those with the gift to be starfighters. And here you are, my boy. Here you are!
Picture this. Screenwriter Jonathan Betuel standing in a dimly lit arcade, watching some teenager absolutely lose his mind over a high score. Sweat dripping, quarters scattered, the kid's entire world shrinking down to those glowing pixels. And Betuel thinks, what if this isn't just a game? That thought became Hollywood's most batched premise. A trailer park kid beats an arcade game only to discover it's an alien recruitment test for an intergalactic war. Universal executives heard this pitch and probably thought Betuel had been huffing arcade fumes. But here's the thing. In 1984, every kid in America was feeding quarters into machines like their lives depended on it. Pac-Man fever had evolved into something darker, more obsessive. Kids would skip school, steal lunch money, anything for one more game. Betuel's script didn't just capture that obsession, it weaponized it. Alex Rogan wasn't escaping to Fantasyland. He was a working-class kid in a dusty trailer park whose only escape was a joystick and a dream. Originally, they wanted him in suburban paradise with white picket fences, but Universal panicked about copying E.T., so they dropped him in poverty instead, surrounded by neighbors who'd gather around that arcade cabinet like it was the damn Super Bowl. That grounding and struggle made his leap to the stars feel earned, not given. But Alex almost wasn't Alex at all. Universal wanted star power, someone to guarantee butts in seats. Michael J. Fox was riding high on Family Ties, perfect age, perfect look, already America's sweetheart. But his sitcom contract had him locked down tighter than Fort Knox. Eric Stoltz screen-tested beautifully before Mass kidnapped him. Then briefly, Back to the Future before that fell apart too. Even Jennifer Jason Leigh circled Maggie's role before Catherine Mary Stewart showed up and created instant chemistry with Lance Guest. Here's what nobody talks about. Guest and Stewart weren't stars. They were nobodies. But that's exactly what made it work. Two unknown kids from nowhere, suddenly thrown into the cosmos. No baggage, no expectations, just pure authenticity. The studio wanted celebrities. They got something better, believability. Then there's the director situation that almost changed everything. Before Nick Castle signed on, James Cameron, fresh off the Terminator and hungry for his next kill, circled this project like a shark. For a few weeks it looked like The Last Starfighter would get the Cameron treatment. Darker, grittier, probably with more acid blood. But schedules clashed, ambitions diverged, and Cameron dove into Aliens instead while Castle took the helm. Here's the kicker. Castle wasn't some random hire. Horror fans knew him as the Shape, the man behind Michael Myers' mask in Halloween. John Carpenter's college buddy who became horror's most iconic killer without showing his face. So the guy who spent 1978 stalking babysitters was now directing a family-friendly space adventure. That's not a career pivot, that's a full psychotic break from your own resume. The real revolution happened inside a Cray XMP supercomputer, one of 6 on the entire planet. Each frame contained 250,000 polygons, numbers that sound quaint now, but in 1984 might as well have been alien technology. They were building spaceships out of math, while everyone else was still playing with plastic. Digital Productions, the effects house, promised this would be faster and cheaper than models. Total bullshit. When they tried rendering the Death Blossom, that spinning carnival of destruction, the computer started choking like it was being strangled. Crashes, overheating, engineers literally standing by with fire extinguishers. The machine that was supposed to revolutionize cinema was having a nervous breakdown trying to animate a spinning spaceship. One effects artist later admitted they were basically making it up as they went along, writing code that had never existed for images nobody had ever seen. This wasn't filmmaking, it was digital jazz with a gun to your head. The Gunstar itself was something that had never existed before. A spaceship born entirely in a computer, designed by Ron Cobb, who'd already carved his name into Alien and Conan. No kit bashing, no model parts stolen from tank kits, just pure geometric beauty rendered in pixels. It looked exactly like what it was, a ship from a video game that didn't exist yet. While Star Wars ships looked lived in and dirty, the Gunstar gleamed like it was made of arcade screen dreams. Half the audience thought it looked fake, the other half thought it looked like the future. Turns out the second half was right. Here's something that got buried in the archives. Xur, the megalomaniac villain, originally proved his evil by frying a spy's brain on live TV. Full sequence shot, glowing scepter, victim writhing, skin practically melting off. Classic 80s nightmare fuel. But Castle had to maintain that precious PG rating, so he cut it down to basically nothing. A red flash on a forehead, blink, and it's gone. The cosmic joke? PG-13 launched just weeks after The Last Starfighter released. If Castle had waited 1 month, that brain-melting scene stays in, and kids across America get properly traumatized. Instead, one of the film's darkest moments got dissolved into nothing. The star car, that golden testament to 80s excess, was supposed to scream across scenes like something from a cosmic dealer's showroom. On film, it looked magnificent. Doors that lifted like wings. Interior that glowed like a sunset, the kind of ride that made DeLoreans look like golf carts. Reality was somewhat different. The damn thing barely worked. Doors jammed constantly, the fiberglass body rattled like a maraca, and its top speed was slightly faster than a motivated jog. Every dramatic entrance required 3 takes minimum because the car would either stall, veer off course, or just refuse to move entirely. The crew spent more time pushing it than filming it. Castle later admitted that vehicle was the biggest pain in the ass on set. A $300,000 lemon dressed up as a spaceship. Then you had Robert Preston as Centauri. And this is where it gets beautiful and tragic. The studio didn't want Preston initially. Too old, too theatrical, too Broadway. But the role was literally written for him, a cosmic evolution of his Harold Hill character from The Music Man. Same DNA, fast-talking, charming, slightly shady, selling dreams to desperate people. Preston knew this was his last dance. His health was failing, though he never mentioned it on set. Every scene where Centauri spreads his arms and sells the universe, that's Preston giving everything he had left. When Centauri drives off in that barely functioning star car for the last time, it's not just a character exit. It's Preston's final bow to Hollywood. He died 2 years later, making The Last Starfighter his farewell to cinema. Not a bad way to go out, as a con man recruiter for the stars. The beta unit subplot almost didn't exist beyond a quick joke. Early cuts had maybe 5 minutes of the android duplicate stumbling around Earth, but test audiences lost their minds laughing at Beta's robotic attempts at being human. That creepy smile, the way he'd pause before every sentence like buffering. So they expanded it, called Lance Guest back for reshoots, except Guest had already cut his hair for another role, forcing him into a wig that looked like roadkill under the lights. Worse, the Beta prosthetics were thick latex hell. Guest was sick during most of the reshoots, sweating bullets under pounds of rubber while trying to act like a malfunctioning android pretending to be himself. He later said playing Beta nearly broke him physically and mentally. Every laugh Beta got cost Guest another piece of his soul. The tragedy nobody talks about? Kids walked out of theaters in 1984, desperate to find that Starfighter arcade game. It was right there on screen. The cabinet, the gameplay, Alex's record-breaking run. Surely it existed somewhere, right? Atari even teased it in the credits, built actual working prototypes with full cabinets and everything. But the video game crash of 1983 had gutted the industry. Atari was hemorrhaging money, and the arcade game died before reaching a single pizza parlor. Those prototypes vanished into some warehouse, becoming the Ark of the Covenant of gaming. 6 years later, they released an NES game called The Last Starfighter. Kids rushed to buy it only to discover it was actually just a reskinned version of Uridium with different sprites. Not even an attempt at recreating the movie's game. Just a straight-up lie in cartridge form. Imagine waiting 6 years for Christmas and getting punched in the face instead. Speaking of cut content, Wil Wheaton filmed scenes as Lewis's friend before anyone knew who Wesley Crusher would be. Weeks of work, multiple scenes, actual dialogue, all chopped down to maybe 3 frames where you can spot him if you squint. His parents drove him to the premiere telling him he was in a real movie. Then they sat there watching him not appear for 96 minutes. Wheaton jokes about it now, but imagine being a kid thinking you're in The Last Starfighter, only to discover you're basically an extra who didn't make the credits. 2 years later, he booked Stand By Me, then Star Trek, becoming the sci-fi icon the film accidentally rejected. Universal executives saw dollar signs everywhere. They wanted action figures, lunchboxes, bed sheets, the full Star Wars treatment. Prototypes were designed, manufacturers lined up, marketing campaigns planned. They projected merchandising alone would triple the film's profits. Then reality hit like a meteor. The movie made $28.7 million worldwide against a $15 million budget. Profitable, but not the phenomenon they'd prayed for. Not enough to justify the toy factories. Every single merchandising plan evaporated overnight. No action figures, no playsets, no nothing. Kids who wanted a Gunstar toy had to build one out of Legos and imagination. The film that pioneered CGI spaceships couldn't even get a plastic one manufactured. Here's what saved it: VHS and insomnia. The Last Starfighter bombed its theatrical run, but found resurrection in video stores and 2 a.m. cable showings. Kids who missed it in theaters discovered it during sleepovers. Adults found it channel surfing through late-night wasteland. By the 90s, it had transformed from failed blockbuster to comfort food for sci-fi nerds. That specific period, when HBO would play the same movie 17 times a month, The Last Starfighter lived there, broadcasting its weird arcade energy into living rooms across America. It became the movie you'd already seen 6 times but would watch again anyway because nothing else was on, and honestly, the Death Blossom sequence still kicked ass. The weirdest chapter came in 2004 when New York's Storm Theater decided The Last Starfighter needed to be a musical, full Broadway treatment. Songs about destiny, ballads in space, a chorus number about the Kodan Armada. It sounds like a fever dream, but it actually happened. Reviews were mixed between surprisingly entertaining and what the hell did I just watch? But here's the thing. Only cult classics get turned into off-Broadway musicals 20 years later. Nobody's making a stage version of Krull. The musical proved The Last Starfighter had achieved something most 80s sci-fi couldn't: genuine cult immortality. Since 2008, sequel rumors have surfaced more often than Nessie sightings. Jonathan Betuel wrote a treatment. Seth Rogen's production company sniffed around. Spielberg's Amblin Entertainment took meetings. Every few years, another announcement. The Last Starfighter sequel in development. Then silence. Legal complications, rights issues, studio cold feet, death by 1,000 lawyers. But the rumors never fully die because everyone knows the truth. In an era where everything gets rebooted, The Last Starfighter feels inevitable. Modern CGI could deliver what 1984 could only dream about. The arcade game could actually exist now. VR could put you in the Gunstar cockpit. Every piece is there except the green light. But maybe that's perfect. The Last Starfighter was never meant to be Star Wars. It was something stranger, a movie about a video game that didn't exist, made with computers that could barely function, directed by Michael Myers himself, starring nobody you'd heard of, with a car that didn't work and prosthetics that nearly killed its lead. It pioneered technology that would reshape cinema while telling a story about a trailer park kid who saved the galaxy because he was good at video games. It failed at everything Universal wanted and succeeded at something nobody expected, becoming unforgettable. Every kid who dropped quarters into arcade machines hoping they meant something. Every teenager stuck in nowhere, towns dreaming of escape. Every person who thought their high score might actually matter. This movie was for them. It took the most mundane obsession of the 80s and said, what if this is actually important? What if your stupid hobby is actually your destiny? In a world of chosen ones and prophecies, Alex Rogan was chosen by nobody except himself, 1 quarter at a time. The Death Blossom wasn't just a weapon, it was the movie itself, spinning wildly, firing in all directions, hoping something would hit, and 4 decades later, we're still feeling the impact. Not because it conquered the box office or launched a franchise, but because it dared to dream that computers could build worlds as real as anything Hollywood had ever filmed. Every CGI blockbuster owes a debt to those 27 minutes of polygon dogfights that nearly melted a supercomputer. The Last Starfighter began as a daydream in an arcade and became patient zero for digital cinema. It carried the DNA of Tron, the unused designs from Alien, and the fever dreams of kids who thought their joystick skills might mean something. It gave Robert Preston his cosmic curtain call and gave cinema its first true digital spaceship. It proved that the future of movies wasn't in model shops but in machines that didn't exist yet. And that arcade game everyone wanted? It's still out there in the collective unconscious, waiting. Every time you see a retro arcade cabinet, part of you still wonders if this might be the one. The test, the recruitment, the chance to trade your dead-end life for a Gunstar cockpit. That's the real legacy of The Last Starfighter. It made us all believe, just for a moment, that the games we played might be playing us right back.